For the longest time, I had been wanting to create a system or like some sort of like justification guide to go back to, in which I could essentially decide when to shoot film and when to shoot digital. And I looked on forums, Reddit, everything, talked to people, and there's nothing out there. And this actually like haunted me forever, especially because listen, I've shot underexposed photos. I've missed focus, I've missed composition, I ruined photos while developing them. And for some reason, even when all of that happened, I always seem to find kind of like the brighter side on everything. Obviously, in this day and age, we live in a digital world and I couldn't shoot film and I can't shoot film all the time. Not every job requires you or allows you or makes sense for you to shoot film. And I've always wanted to find either a way to justify when to shoot film and when to shoot digital. And if I'm shooting digital, I've always wanted it to feel like I'm shooting film. And I didn't find anything. So hopefully this video helps you. Hopefully this video answers that question if you're looking for it. Let's dive into it. Why I shoot film personally. Honestly, I feel like the best word to describe it, it's tempo. When you're shooting film, given that you don't have a visual feedback, you don't have an instant gratification factor, it forces you to slow down. First, obviously, limited shots. And second, since you have limited shots, you really need to nail those and you really need to be present. And not only for the photographer, but also for the people involved, the talent. It allows you to have that connection with them because you guys are not so focused on seeing what the photos are looking like. You guys are focused on the process. And I think that's one of the reasons why films feels so special to me, aside from the obvious aesthetic aspect of it. But I feel like the feeling of it, it's different when creating it, right? The whole process, it's much slower, but it yields results that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise in digital, even if you would try to replicate them. Listen, man, digital, it's just faster. And for some jobs, it just makes sense to shoot digital. For example, like if I'm shooting a commercial job, it's probably going to be on digital because those photos require an insane amount of editing and post-processing. They're sharp, they're clean, and they're fast. And in this digital world that we live in, for certain things, it just makes sense. It just makes sense to be fast. So to give you an example of when I would shoot digital, like a high pressure moment or like a fast turnaround, live shows, it's a really good example. I get to shoot live shows with Los Mesoneros from time to time, and it's something that I actually love doing. But the truth is that they need those photos the night off because they haven't showed the next day. And they need the photos so they can get the people pumped to go to the next show and so on and so forth every single night. And that's true for any music photographer that works today, because even if you're like me and you're also shooting film on the shows, you do need the photos day off so they can promote them on social media. So now let's dive deep into my system and how I figured out when to shoot digital, when to shoot film, and if I'm shooting digital, how to make it feel a little bit closer to shooting film. And it's very simple. So if I'm shooting something commercial, something that requires heavy retouching, reliable, fast turnarounds, and an insane amount of photos, automatically I'm going digital. It honestly doesn't really make sense for it to be shot on film as much as I would like to, but it just doesn't. Now, if we're shooting editorial, I'm always gonna pitch film. So that was like my system: commercial, digital, editorial, film. And I think the biggest takeaway from that is that the shoot is what decides what format we're shooting, right? A lot of times it's going to depend on the client, right? So even if I'm doing something super editorial, like if I'm shooting an artist, right? But I know those photos are going to require like a ton of editing, I'm probably going to still shoot them on digital, or I'll go for something like a medium format that gives me a little bit more of a high fidelity look. In my case, I work a lot with music, right? And I feel like the aesthetic, it's such a huge part of the musician's persona that whatever I end up shooting, whatever format, whether it's 120, 35 or digital, has to go hand in hand with whatever the artist stands for or whatever the artist is going for. And then there's cases where I might even do both. Take for example something like this image right here. Like in this case, we were shooting a calendar, and yes, we shot everything in 120, but I had the client on set, not the band, but I also had to have instant feedback. So the process in which I did it, and I do this all the time, it's like I'll have my monitor, I have my digital camera. Once we lock in the lighting and everybody's happy with what we're getting, I'll yell out, let's sprint. I'll grab my 120 or my 35mm camera and I'll shoot those same photos on film, just so we have the aesthetic factor of film, and we already know that we have first a digital backup and we know exactly what it's going to look like. And if worse comes to happen, we ruin the rolls, they get lost, or whatever might happen, we have that digital backup, right? And a lot of times those digital backups might end up being used as throwaway photos, social media, or that kind of thing. So can hurt, right? Now let's take a look at what I call the hybrid mindset, which is essentially how I live my photography life. There's a lot of digital cameras, no hate, but there's a lot of digital cameras that just feel too artificial for me. And for me, one of the biggest factors of shooting film, it's the physicality of it, right? You're winding back, you're focusing, you're zooming in. All of that happening makes me feel like I'm physically creating the photo. And I feel like in a lot of those cases, it's just you're just shooting, right? And that's when, you know, more of a boutique type camera comes in that I love. Something like a Leica, which I don't own, but I know. And in my specific case, that's when I discovered the Fuji X-T5, because the Fuji X-T5, the form factor, it's very similar to a film camera. I know a Nikon Z, I think it's called Z1. It's similar. And not only that, like you have the physical knobs, even though you can still use the screen. But my biggest thing is that it allows you to shut off the screen. So you're solely looking through the viewfinder, and this in itself, you know, forces you to tempo, forces you to stop, look through the viewfinder, focus, shoot. And by doing this, I noticed that the results that I was getting were much closer to what I was doing with the film. And I'm not necessarily talking about aesthetics, but about feeling, right? Feeling is king. That's just the reality of it. The vibe is king. And I've always wanted to create a vibe. That's what I call my hybrid system. Those type of cameras that allow you to do that. And yes, I'm sure you could do that with the more digital cameras. But in this specific case, I feel like the form factor is just king for me. So yeah, I hope this explanation and this method, you know, serves as some sort of guide for you, because honestly, this is something that haunted me forever. But I'm curious to hear, like, how do you guys do it? What's your system? When do you shoot digital? When do you shoot film? And how do you guys go about it? I'm sure everyone has a different method, but this one has worked pretty well for me. But yeah, drop a comment, let me know. I'm excited to hear what your system is. And yeah, guys, sub up, like up, come on, it's free, man. It's free. You don't need to pay, you don't need to do anything. It's just a click of a button, but it helps a lot. So like up, sub up. And if you don't know about me, my name is Gara. I'm a photographer, director, multidisciplinary artist. You can check me out on Instagram, Twitter, my website, Facebook, everywhere, TikTok. And yeah, see you guys soon. Peace out, gang.